Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jane Live Miracle Medicine Thursday evening, where we talk about wonderful healing at the 365 Healthy by Choice Center. We have a look at the wonderful 365 products, and we really are blessed to have products like this, which enable us to transform. And we've been speaking over the last couple of Thursday evenings about metamorphosis, resurrection, and moving to more of an integrated, whole, authentic, organic human, and doing our duty to the earth to restore the earth, because it's through us and our manifestation and our activation of the minerals, which then go back to the earth, which will regenerate the earth. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but we are all pointed in the right direction. Our ships are sailing in the right direction, and we're putting in the little building blocks in a very holistic way, natural way, in bite-sized chunks, so that we can, reach this point of integration. And Errol's joining us this evening, and he's going to be expanding on a lot of what I've talked about from a soul astrology point of view. In particular, looking at these three full sun moon events that have occurred in April, May, and June every year, and bringing in, the love element, the enlightenment element, and just helping us integrate also this information, particularly looking at with Mother's Day and male and female and feminization of the planet, let's say, removal a bit of the patriarchal environment, which we're all aware of. Very important there to get that balance between the yin and the yang, the male and the female, and the ultimate integration. So without me, spoiling Errol's show here, a very, very warm welcome, Errol, to the Jane Live 365 Healthy by Choice. It's always an unbelievable pleasure and honor to have you sharing your knowledge, which is based in astrology. And what I really like about Errol's work is that, he can actually plot it scientifically on a map. And for those of you in the group who've, had their natal chart read before, I've had my children's, it's been spot on. Now, often I don't digest it all the first time. I mean, Errol knows this. So sometimes I've got to reread, which is good, because the more you read, the more you really do understand it. So, Errol, let's hear, where we are right now at this important astrological, historical, spiritual alignment of the beautiful planets. Over to you, Errol.
Right, great. Thanks, Jane. So I thought, just as before getting to the Taurus full sun moon cycle, which is tomorrow, Monday, 16th, at about 4:15 in the morning Greenwich Mean Time, therefore South African time 6:15, because always with the Greenwich Mean Time, everyone in the world must obviously change the timing of the exact time of the full sun moon cycle according to their local time, and except of course for the Britain and other people on Greenwich Mean Time. It's very important, especially for this particular full sun moon cycle, Taurus, that people are aware that the energy impact actually comes right in directly at literally the exact time of the cycle. In this case, as I said, 4:15 Greenwich Mean Time in the morning, or 6:15 South African time. Because the energy literally comes into the planet and into humanity, and into the energy system and the energy centers at that exact time, and unfold for about 6 hours after that. But I'll share more about that now. But one of the important things, as you said, these cycles occur every year. So it's not like something that's only occurring this year.
Yeah.
But what makes it more important this year is a number of issues. First of all, this is 2022, and that comes out to the number 42. 20 and 22 is 42. And 42, the mathematical note of 42 is the number of a turning point. For instance, in everyone's individual life, around about the age of 42, sometimes slightly less, slightly more, but 42 is the number. People go through what's called the Uranus opposition, which means the planet Uranus, which is moving to the zodiac, reaches the exact opposite position that it was when a person was born. So it's a 180-degree opposition. It's called the Uranus opposition. And that is what's called the midlife crisis turning point. And everyone goes through a very, very profound death and rebirth cycle at that particular time. It usually takes about 2 years to unfold fully, but it occurs at that particular time. And the person's old life, much of what is no longer relevant, has to be given up. In a certain sense, it's forced to be given up. And then their new life, which is going to unfold for the rest of their life, actually comes into manifestation at that particular time. So for humanity, it's almost the same thing, 42. It's like the turning point for humanity and human evolution, a major death cycle and a major beginning of the rebirth cycle for humanity, for the nations, etc., etc. So that's extremely important, which makes this year different to other years.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, the other thing which is connected to that, because all the events in the world, which we have to examine, not just literally, but symbolically, and examine the deeper meaning behind particular events, rather than get caught up in the physical event itself, which is people should be very aware of course, is the Russian-Ukraine war. And that war is not just a war or a conflict which is occurring externally, and then people get caught up in the external war. I always say to people, don't look at any videos on the war, because that's all propaganda. It's all nonsense. It's all kind of a facade, and it's all an illusion. So the external aspect of the war, people should keep away from, because if they don't, they'll get emotionally and mentally influenced and disturbed by it, and they won't be perceiving things correctly. So one of the things which is happening, if we connect it to the 2022 year, to 42, and then we connect that particular conflict, is that the world is going through, and humanity is going through a major change now this year, of which that war is a symbol, because no longer, we talked about this before, in the same way that man has dominated woman and masculine-based patriarchal societies dominated the more feminine-based matriarchal society, and that's on a collective level, a social level, personal level. And this has been for the last 6,000 years, and it's the reason why we've had almost ongoing wars throughout the last 6,000 years of human history. It's just been a continuation of war and aggression against humans, of course against the earth too, because war creates massive problems and wounds for the earth. So in a sense, it's like a form of rape of the earth, which is a feminine principle. And the men who've perpetuated these wars over all this time, of course, don't care two cahoots about what damage they do to the earth or to all human beings. Which of course they always use the word enemy. So in this sense, the way we always use it is that that's the enemy. And it's like incredible that people who actually claim to be religious, whether they're Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, or whatever, who claim that God, this God that they worship, created everything, created the earth, created humanity, and then to be able to say that those are our enemies, which means those human beings we don't like are our enemies. When they say that God created everything in the image of God, therefore it's a divine creation. Therefore, it's completely anti-religious to go to war. But the typical man doesn't think like that.
Yes.
So what's happening with that war is that for a long time, almost since the last 200 years or so, if not more, the Western world, which means the United States, Britain, European countries, Portugal, Spain, Germany, Italy, France, etc., have controlled the world. And that is, the Western world is more the masculine world, the yang world. And they have done their utmost best to make sure they maintain control of the world and do not allow the Eastern world, which is more the feminine yin aspect, in this case, China, Russia, Asia, India, and other countries, and I would include Africa in that context, put down. But now what's happened is that the Eastern world, basically, which comprises, by the way, 90% of the population of the world lives in the eastern section of the world.
That's amazing.
China, Russia, India, Indonesia, and Asia have the vast majority of the population of the world. You can bring in Africa too. And so 10% of the world, which is the masculine, has controlled and which to maintain control of the Eastern world, of the feminine section. And just like women have been rebelling for the last, who knows how many years, 40, 50, 60 years, against a male-dominated society, and women are becoming more independent, more individualized, more creative, and more powerful, and so on, and taking back their rights, which have been taken away from them by this patriarchal masculine-based society, and men in general. The Eastern world is now saying no more. And Russia and China have basically made an agreement that they will no longer be subjugated or overpowered by the Western masculine world. And India has aligned itself with them. Brazil has aligned itself. South Africa, as you know, is a part of BRICS, has aligned itself with them. Iran, Venezuela, Bolivia. Many of these countries are now aligning with the Eastern world. And in fact, that's even economically, they're starting to align with the Chinese yuan and to move away from the dollar as a world currency. So that's what the war is really about, because the Western world, the masculine-based young Western world, decided that they will not allow their power to be taken away, not in terms of taking away, but create an equal multinational world order. And they decided that what they would do is they were going to try and bring down Russia and use Ukraine as a proxy to attack Russia, give Ukraine lots of money, give Ukraine lots of weapons, and then tell the Ukrainians to start basically to initiate a war with Russia in order to bring Russia down and maintain their power. And I always say it's a bit like an old person who's dying, and instinctively you don't want to die, so you do everything possible not to die, including you become almost self-destructive or destructive in order to try and maintain your life, but you're dying, and that's it, and you're going to die, but your reaction, your instinctive reaction, is to maintain your control. So the Western world is attempting to maintain its control by doing something which in the end result is completely self-destructive and is backfiring against the whole Western world.
Makes sense.
And their whole plan was to instigate and force Russia into this war in order to try and bring Russia down and maintain Western control of the world order. And it's not going to work, because Russia is a superpower and it has nuclear weapons and will very soon defeat Ukraine, bring down the Ukrainian government and force Ukraine to become neutral and not to join NATO, which basically means not to join the Western power, when Ukraine itself is part of the East, not part of the West.
Yeah.
So that's what this battle between Russia and Ukraine, or Russia and the United States and NATO is not just the external battle is a facade. It's just like a movie. The purpose behind it is that Russia is not going to, backed up by China, is not going to allow the Western world to maintain its imbalanced and basically manipulative, deceptive power. And that war is simply the process by which this is happening. And that's why people shouldn't get caught up in it, because there's a symbol behind it.
Yeah.
So that aligns with the 222 or 42 number for this particular year. Mm. And it's interesting to state that Edgar Cayce, the great American psychic who many people know about and have read his books, in his books he actually said, because he would go into a state of trance, as you know, and then he'd communicate a message came through him, Edgar Cayce, and they were all absolutely right on. And the statement he actually made, which was only, he said, out of Russia will come the hope for the world.
Interesting.
And the Tibetan master DK in the arcane teaching said the same thing. He said literally the same words. Out of Russia will come the hope for the world.
And I think Rudolf Steiner alluded to that too, as Russia being the next superpower.
Yes, you're right. Steiner said the same thing.
Yeah.
And you can't probably get three higher sort of consciousnesses. The Tibetan DK, Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Cayce all said the same thing. So something is happening which will come out of this war, so to speak, where Russia will manifest an aspect of itself which is more along its spiritual purpose.
Yeah.
Rather than simply its physical or economic purpose.
Yeah, so you're saying that it's a mirror image of humanity, what's going on in the sort of geopolitical world. And it's all about integration at the end of the day, isn't it? Integration of the male, the female, and these moons are critical regarding that, because we're in the Enlightenment moon now, which is the Buddha sun moon, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So you were speaking to me.
This is the way people have to look upon it.
Yeah.
It's almost like Russia from all these three aspects of the esoteric principle is the hope of the world. It's not attacking Ukraine in a negative sense, as some of the South African newspapers. I was reading the Star today. It's absolutely ridiculous, the articles in the Star, how it's almost all the articles are attacking Russia for what's happening, and none of them are like seeing what's really happening behind the scenes. You know, it's like literally Russia is the hope for humanity, because if the Western alliance, masculine gang alliance, is not stopped, it's not just going to take over the world as it has been doing politically, economically, especially militarily, especially, and so on. It's going to enslave humanity, not just take over the world, enslave humanity, because that's the aim of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab and these people have declared quite openly their aim is not just to control the world, it's to enslave humanity. And in that sense, Russia is the country that's about to prevent that. Because Russia cannot be overcome, it cannot be beaten in this particular war because it has nuclear weapons, and if the worst came to the worst, produce nuclear weapons.
It's a self-sufficient nation. It's huge, and it has all its resources. You know, similar to South Africa, it's got a lot of gold. So, Errol, let's spend the next, if we can just spend the next 10 minutes, what we were talking about before, what it means to the listeners regarding the gender, and then the time to spend in your, if you're female in male, if male in your female, and then the integration parts and how that plays out in relationships. I think that will really be valuable to us on a practical level.
So the three most is obviously 12 full sun moon cycles every year, because that's the 12 signs of the zodiac, and each one occurs in one of the months of, for instance, in the Aries cycle, it occurs in Aries. full sun moon in the Taurus cycle occurs in the Taurus full sun moon. In Gemini cycle occurs in the Gemini full sun moon, and so on. But the three most important ones are the Aries one, which is in April, the Taurus one, which is in May, and the Gemini one, which is in June. And so these cycles basically bring through the three impacts which will influence the rest of the year and going into 2023 and onwards. So the Aries one, which is masculine, because Aries is a masculine fire sign, brings through the seeds. So it only brings through the seed impact, like if you're planting seeds in the ground. And this in terms of human change, human consciousness, human evolution. So often people don't recognize what's happening in the Aries impact because it's just seeds. The Taurus one then starts like rooting. It roots the seeds into the ground as like when a seed is then rooted into the ground, and it anchors the energy. And you begin to feel it because it's occurring more physically rather than abstractly. And with that, it brings what we call illumination, or deep understanding, or intuitive awareness, and enables people to grasp intuitively what's happening, why it's happening, and what's unfolding in terms of the new, present, and future for humanity, for nations, and for people in general. Of course, the level of consciousness of people, how conscious they are or how unconscious they are, how responsible they are or how irresponsible they are, and so on, that determines how well people will receive these impacts, understand them, and manifest them. And that happens like at the Taurus full sun moon, which is tomorrow, and it unfolds for the rest of next week as people will feel it, because every full sun moon cycle is like an impact, and then it's a wave out, or like an unfolding of the impact, which goes from the mental plane, the emotional plane, the etheric plane, and the physical plane. So that takes 4 stages, 4 days for it to unfold, and for people to then recognize the impact both within them and in their lives, and within their nation, and within the planet, and within humanity. So people should be aware of that, because the more conscious you are of it, the more you recognize what changes are coming. And those changes always come in 2 ways. On the one hand, they're literal, which of course is obvious, but on the other hand, they're always symbolical too. So you have to catch the symbol within the literal activity or event. Like we explained about the Russian-Ukraine war. It's literal on the one hand, but much more important, it carries symbology. And what is the symbology? So that's what happens with the Taurus cycle. And people should try and meditate, try and contemplate, try and be silent, try and be still, try and be receptive, especially tomorrow, because the more receptive and the more open you are, and the more that you're attuned to the energy, the more that you will be directly impacted by it.
So Errol, this opportunity comes every year with these 3 moons, and the thing is for us to now actually realize this, and the opportunity astrologically, energetically to resurrect yourself, metamorphosize, is held in these 3 main moons, which Errol is speaking about. And Errol very clearly put it to me about when you're female, and then you have a time in your life when you manifest your male energy, and then you integrate the 2 within the 3rd moon, and that this integration and the experiences of us in the different male female role can play out in relationships, and often are the reason for breakdowns in relationships and things. Just elaborate on that a bit more, Errol.
Yeah, well, the Aries one of the ways to try to explain this, which is like a natural expense, is that Aries is the male energy, which is the seed. Taurus is the female energy, which is the womb. In fact, if you look at the symbol of Taurus, it actually looks like the womb of a woman.
Okay.
So, in fact, the ancient, if you look at the female goddess myths, often the symbol of Taurus is exactly like it looks like a woman's womb.
Okay.
And so the man or the male energy plants the seed.
Yes.
Right, in the woman's womb.
Right.
And this is collectively for the planet, for humanity. And then the seed that's in Taurus. And then the seed begins to manifest itself to create the new child in Gemini. Right? Because that's when the integration occurs between the male and the female.
Perfect, yeah.
Energy, because Gemini is the twins. And the twins are like opposites, but they of course are one.
Yeah.
Like the heads and tails of a coin.
Yeah.
So that's actually happening collectively for humanity. The seed, masculine seed, is planted in the female womb, and then from that you start getting the beginning of the birth of a new child, which is what's happening for humanity. A new humanity is being born this year. Only being born, so we should understand that, but still being born. And as it's been born, the old humanity, which has reached its death cycle, so it's like an old person that's dying, right? It's dying, and the new child is being born.
Yeah.
And everyone is in the middle and having to make their choice. Do they stay with the old world, which is dying and over? It's had its time, or do they move into the new world and become a pioneer, a participant in that new world, a co-creator in that new world? No one can stand in the middle, because every human is part of humanity, is part of like a cell in humanity, and everyone has to make their choice. Whether that choice is made consciously, which of course is much better, or whether it's made unconsciously, is up to people. But many people who are standing in the middle and not making a choice, or retreating back to the past, which is dying, are being impacted very negatively and are getting disease and are passing on. People will notice this, and because you can't go against evolutionary impulses. If you try and go against evolutionary impulses, you will get sick, you will get diseased, you will be part of the death cycle, not the rebirth cycle. So it's much more, profound what's happening here, what people realize. It's got nothing to do with the Russian-Ukraine war, blah, blah, blah. It's got nothing to do with the COVID, blah, blah, blah. These are just symbols. It's got to be, this is the time of choice. Make your choice. Which world are you going to be part of and contribute to? What's the use of being part of an old world when it's dying?
Yeah.
What are you going to contribute to your death cycle? Be part of the new world, and make your contribution, whatever that contribution needs to be, as long as it's like, the teenager's service. How do you serve the greater good of humanity, of human evolution, which means the same thing as serving God, because God's plan unfolds in time via human evolution. So whether you see it as a human thing or a spiritual thing or both, makes no difference. But you make your choice to be part of that new world, that new humanity, that new way of living, that new man, that new woman, that new partnership, that new family, new community, etc.
And as we manifest, sorry, I was going to say, as we manifest and reach out, so we are met. And the whole thing is amplified, but we need to take that step. It's not going to come to us. It's there. What we're doing is making the information available. Errol, from a soul astrology point of view, is giving us information that actually, if you asked him 2,000 years ago, one of the astrologers then, they would have, in any event, be saying this, because it's in the stars as such, to be, a little bit simple about it. But so with every death cycle, there's a rebirth. It's up to us. Like you say, Errol, it's up to us. It's our choice. And what is your plan? And as you manifest your plan, you will be met.
Yes, and it's. I mean, the problem. I mean, to be practical about it, it's not easy for people because the old world which is dying. You know the old world. People know the old world, what it is, what is it politically, what is it economically, what is it religiously, what is it socially, and so on and so on. You know what is the old man, what is the old woman, what is the old marriage. So many marriages and relationships are collapsing and disintegrating. I mean, we hear about it every single day that's happening. And the reason that's happening is because if you're in an old partnership or marriage or an old family situation and you don't want to change your paradigm, it starts collapsing with a collective collapse. So you have to start with the new things. That's not easy. That's one of the reasons why we're having this event in your place on June the 12th.
Right.
To be able to help people to understand what is the new, so people can understand. You want to know what the new is. Here is the new. Now you can understand what the new is. Now you have a much better chance, more clarity to understand how to contribute towards the new.
Look, I think that's
in the middle and not knowing what's going on.
That's going to be fantastic. So those that are close by are invited to come in person. You know, get out of your home and your lockdown space and open up and come and embrace the new. And we're going to have Errol and Imogen there, representing the Gemini full sun moon, which Errol's going to end off with, which is full integration, the twins, the male, the female integrated. And then from there, Errol, if I'm correct, we can then plot our you know, the next couple of months ahead of us in terms of our own manifestation. Is that right?
Yeah, because the Gemini cycle is very much got to do with two things: education, or three things: education, clarification, and communication. So basically, what that day is for expanded education, which means knowledge and understanding, and clarification, and expanded articulate communication of all that means, which is what people need to be able to know in order to be able to move forward and know how and what they can contribute. And then the next cycle, which is Cancer, which is the fourth sign of the zodiac, is when energy anchors itself into the earth, into actual physical creative activity, especially the home family, because Cancer rules what's called the home family or the community. So that's the cycle after Gemini in July. So, you know, you've got Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. And then you have the Leo cycle, which is the fifth cycle, which is when people discover the unique individual contribution they have to make to life.
Well, Errol, that's fantastic. So we'll be able to each month unfold as the signs of the zodiac unfold and bring the meaning in, you know, from a knowledge point of view, from a potential energy point of view, and moving it into, you know, a kinetic energy into, potential energy into kinetic energy, which is our manifestation. So those of you who want to work with Errol and myself in this particular area on a monthly basis, we're going to be taking you through all this. And on the 12th, especially those people who are overseas and outside of Johannesburg will also be able to, we will give you a link to come in and join us and be part of the education, clarification, you know, the communication, knowledge and information that Errol can share with us, and absolutely invaluable, vital information, because if we want to heal ourselves holistically, if we want to get to that integrated, authentic, original self, we have to bring in all the facets of all the segments of the wheel, if you like, you know, the 12 spokes of the wheel. We need to bring in all those facets to enable us to really then experience the joy and spiritual awakening, should I say. So Errol, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you. Is there any last words that you want to end off with?
Well, just to say that, you know, our little network of people, so to speak, in Johannesburg, etc., your group of people in Johannesburg, etc., and everyone that gets this message in Johannesburg, etc., or even South Africa, can spread it to their network of people.
True.
Obviously, because, and also if there are people around South Africa who feel that, who know someone from their area, Durban, Cape Town, wherever it might be, who want to come to the 12th and sort of represent their area, then they can take that energy back to their area and activate their light network in their area, which means we can kind of spread throughout South Africa. So that's just a thought I have.
From Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Angola, Southwest Africa, you're talking physical representation, that would be absolutely enormous. Errol, I think especially in light of what you've told us from a geopolitical point of view, I've also got a lot of very interesting geopolitical sites, which I'm going to share online, where you can go and educate yourself with knowledge in terms of what's going on. We need to be aware in this particular time right now, because things are happening at lightning speed, and who wants to be left behind when you're awake like this? So Errol, thanks a million again for your valuable time, and Imogen for her direct input as well, and we look forward to seeing the two of you on the 12th in Bryanston, and really sharing creativity, imagination, inspiration, and ultimate manifestation with the tools. So we're removing the guesswork again.
Right, yeah.
Thank you, Errol. And more information on that too. And then those of you who've been staring at the screen, I've put together some beautiful divine feminine celebration soil options, including bee pollen, which is an ultimate feminine healing properties. It's got enzymes, rejuvenation, helps fertility. So that's a real feminine product. The most feminine that I have included there is the almost gold, which is incredibly feminine too, and part of our formation into humans. We need almost gold to do that from, the morphogenic field where we come from. And then those are going to feed us, and I'll put two specials on there, special promotions. Also then to detox with the sauna, with the acupuncture, and with our intravenous oxygen drips, which are incredible. And I'll be, explaining more even on the 12th for those of you who don't know. Errol, we're seeing spontaneous healing. People crawl in, they get carried in, and they walk out after 3 hours. And I don't know what's happened. All I know is that they received an oxygen intravenous drip, and they are now walking. They have life force back in their faces. And, they're just on another level. And it's just absolutely incredible. So we have all of this at our fingertips, and looking forward to great things over the next 12 months. So with that, we're going to end. And thanks a million. And we will be posting all of this and giving everyone info on the 12th of June. So please diarize that. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Errol.
Right.